Have you ever heard of a thing called barley? Little and brown and grainy in aroma? Or have you ever heard of a thing called pH stabilizer? Light and white sprinkled in the water to get it right. Or have you ever heard of a thing called Vorlauf tablets? Then you know too much. You know too much. Now let's brew an Irish stout.
So today we're going to be brewing the Irish Stout all-grain kit from Midwest Homebrewing Supplies. And what comes with that kit are all your grains mixed, ready to go. They do need to be crushed. You can opt to have them crushed or not crushed. I opted for uncrushed because I wasn't sure when I'd be able to brew this batch, and I didn't want them sitting around, you know, opened. So you've got your 2 hop additions, your Nugget Hops, which is for the bittering. Willamette, or Willamette, however you want to say it, is for Aroma. They give you some gypsum here to add in to treat your water. And then you get your selection of yeast. I opted for the dry Safale S-04. It seemed that this would be a really good one to try. I had previously used the Muntins on the extract kit, the very first beer I ever brewed, and it turned out great, so I'm excited to give that one a try, see if there's any flavor difference. So that's what comes with the kit. They also do include priming sugar for if you're going to be bottling. Since I'm going to be putting most of this into the keg, I'm more than likely not going to use much of that. So in addition to this, there are some things I would recommend. I would recommend pH stabilizer. This is the 5.2 pH stabilizer from 5 Star. Vorlauf tablets. These will help. This will help that protein kind of coagulate and fall out of there. You also need your regular sanitizers. I've found that having a thermometer like this, one of the wired, with a probe is very beneficial for doing the all grain, because I wind up putting the probe in the mash tun, the big blue thing back there, and it you never have to open it. It'll it'll read the temperature throughout the entire process, and it's just a handy thing to have. So you got to have all your your brewing equipment and fermenting equipment as well. I've got a malt mill to crush these grains up. So without further ado, let's get to this. This recipe calls for 9 pounds domestic 2-row, 8 ounces chocolate malt, 8 ounces caramel tin, 8 ounces roasted barley, and 4 ounces flaked barley, which at Midwest they go ahead and pack it all together pre-mixed for you. You don't have to worry about getting a whole bunch of little packages. It all is in one. And I opted to get this one uncrushed. So we will need to run it through the malt mill to get it crushed up and ready to be mashed. Now malt mills come with these lovely handles which attach here, and you just hand crank it, but that is very tiring. So I recommend that you get just a standard 3/8 drill. When you open it up, look at that, it fits on perfectly. So what we'll do, we'll tighten this down, get this sucker loaded up, and we'll have all this ground up in no time. Okay, here we go. Now, when you're crushing your own grains, it's really important to make sure that you're not powderizing them, but instead you're breaking it up just so that the inside of the kernel gets good and walloped, but that the hull stays intact, because it's all these hulls that provide basically your filtering action in the bottom of your mash tun. So yeah, like I said, you really want to make sure that you're not absolutely pulverizing them, but instead just making a really good crush. I inevitably spill grain everywhere. It's why I make sure to really clean off my counters before I do anything like this. So we'll just get this put on here. Tighten it down. away we go. So what you're looking for is something about like this. You see, it is crushed, but there's plenty of those hulls still in shape. You know, that's what you're looking for right there. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of this crushed up, and we'll be right back. So I did end up spilling a little bit of the grains here, but I'm sure some of you have seen in one of my previous videos, I have a brewer's little helper, and he likes to help with, the cleanup, actually. He absolutely loves eating malted barley. So I don't have to worry about any spills. They are going to be taken care of immediately. Squidge, is that good? Thumbs good? Chowing down. I'm so lucky I've got a good brewer's little helper. Okay, so now that our grains are mashed quite nicely, like I said, you want to make sure that you get plenty of that, you know, keep the hulls intact. They're going to act as your filter later on. So now what we need to do is we need to get these grains mashing. Now, this recipe calls for about 1.25 quarts of water per pound of grain, and this batch had 10.75 pounds of grain total. So we're going to be using, it's 3.6 gallons of water, which I've already got just a little bit more than that in my fermenting bucket. So handy having these little measures. And what we're going to do, because it is a larger volume, I like to throw it on the propane burner, actually in my boil kettle, nice big 8-gallon sucker. That will get us up to our strike temperature in no time. So I'm going to go ahead, we're going to get this in that in the kettle and on the burner. Okay, so while the strike water is getting heated up, we need to take a temperature reading of our grains here, and I'm just going to be using my thermometer to do that. We'll poke it around in several different spots to make sure we get the overall temperature of it. But the reason we're doing this is we need to figure out what temperature our strike water needs to be in order to heat these grains up and to heat up the mash tun so that it locks in our mash temperature of 152, 154. Right around there is what I'm shooting for. So by doing that, basically you take your temperature of your grains here, which looks like it's going to be 67 or 68. You take your temperature of your grains, you take the volume of grains in pounds or kilograms, whatever, your volume of grains, then you're going to take the volume of water you have, taking into account the grain absorption. So in my case, it was the 3.6 gallons. And then you figure in what your strike, or what your temperature, your mash temperature that you're shooting for is. You put this all through a calculator. There's several great online calculators to help you figure out strike temperatures without having to actually do all the math yourself. And basically, once you plug in those things, you run the calculator, and it's going to tell me what that strike water needs to be for us to hit the 152, 154 range. These grains are actually sitting at 68 degrees, so I'm going to go plug that into the calculator, and we'll see what all we need. Okay, so this calculator here is telling me I need to get to 168.4. But I always check out multiple calculators. I like to make sure that that I get kind of a similar ballpark figure. So this one here, let's see here, the strike temperature. Mash thickness, 1.25 quarts per pound. Yep, that's correct. Desired strike temperature, we're typing in 154. Temperature of grain was at 67. This one says 170. Let's try another one just for kicks, eh? Okay, let's check this one out. Okay, it's going to be a 5-gallon batch. It's 10.75 in grain weight. Boil time 1 hour. True equipment loss. Mash thickness 1.25. We've got a grain temperature of 68 degrees. Target mash of 154. Yeah, this one's coming out at 167.7. So I think I'm going to shoot for the right in the middle ground, so about 168.5. Perfect. Here we go. Strike water is almost ready to go. So I've gotten my mash tun here. I just rinsed and cleaned it out. And now I always, because it's going to be in touch with the sugars in the beer, I always sanitize mine as well. So I've got probably a gallon or so of water in here. I'm just going to pour a little bit of iodophor in. And what we'll end up doing is sloshing that around on the inside and letting it just sit for, it only takes 2 minutes to sanitize. And then to drain it out, I'll send it through the actual, through the spigot I installed down there. So that way the spigot gets sanitized as well. So in just a couple minutes here, we are going to be mashing. It's just that easy. Okay, the strike water is about a degree away from being done, so I've already drained out the mash tun here, and I had a couple quick tips for you actually that I wanted to tell you, because I've made these errors in the past in like a couple of batches when I was learning. First things first, always make sure the spigot is closed. I cannot stress that out enough. If you put all the stuff in here and it just starts shooting out the side, you're going to have problems. So always make sure your spigot is closed. And also, this may sound very, very basic, but I made the mistake once and I never will do it again. Your braided hose or your filter, however you've got your mash tun set up, always make sure it's connected. I've got the stainless steel braid here. It's been sanitized as well. I sanitized my my spoon and this in here, so I'm trying not to touch it too much. But always make sure that you connect this. I had one instance where I did not connect it, and it was a nightmare. It was an absolute nightmare. Beer turned out good, but it was terrible. So I'm going to go ahead and get this connected, and we'll close this up, and here in another minute or two, we're going to be mashing. Okay, our strike water is ready. So, I've connected my braid. I've made sure that the valve down here is closed. What we're going to do, we are going to take our strike water here, get it put in, and we're going to add our pH stabilizer. It's just 1 tablespoon. Sprinkle it across. I give it a little bit of a stir. And now what we're going to do, we're going to let this sit closed for just a couple minutes. Well, maybe a minute even. What we're doing right now, we're letting that hot water warm up the mash tun just a little bit. It'll help stabilize out the temperatures here by the time we dough in our grains, which is going to be in just a minute. Okay, we're ready to go. So, what we do is we take our grains and add them slowly. I've got my sanitized spoon ready. You can have a big fancy mash paddle. I just happen to have a spoon. It's worked great for me. That's what I'm going to do. Braid is attached. I can't stress that enough. But just start slowly mixing them in. Oh yeah, I can smell the coffee smell already. Basically what you're wanting to do is you want to add your grains fast enough so that you're not losing a lot of temperature because you've got the lid of the cooler off, but you want to add it slow enough so that you don't get dough balls. And those are just clumps of grains that don't really, I don't know, they don't get wetted properly, so they kind of turn into to dough balls. They're like little meatballs. It's disgusting. But then you got to break them up, and it just adds time and stress. So this is what I always do. Perfect. Looking good. Let's just get the rest of those in. Perfect. So we'll just keep mixing these in. Now, if you've seen my pumpkin beer video with Baz, you saw that I was doing all this stuff outside. Well, it is absolutely freezing and windy as hell today. So basically, I'm doing everything on the inside that I can. One big reason too is so that the mash here stays warm enough. If I left this cooler outside today, oh my goodness, even though it's a very well insulated cooler, it would be frozen solid by the time I got it back inside. It would not last the entire duration that the mash needs. Okay, so that's pretty well mixed. We're going to grab our thermometer here. Give it a test. Just a couple degrees below where I want to be. I want to get it up to 154 so that way it lasts throughout the whole mash. Well, it's 151, 152. It's teetering. So I want to get that up just a little bit higher. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this up here. And we're going to get some, we're going to add some boiling water to it here. So be back in just a second. Okay, folks, look at that. 153, 154. Oh, I pulled it out. Sorry. So check that out. We're sitting at 153 to 154, pretty much across the board. So we're good to go. Give this one quick stir here. Make sure it's all good and soaked. Set that in there. So now what I do is I take my thermometer and I like drop it in. You don't want to drop the whole thing in because it's bad. You can't get that top wet. But if you just leave it in like that, close it up, boom, you got your thermometer now. So that way you can that way you can pretty much keep an eye on the temperature the entire time so you can know to fix something if there's something wrong. But looks like that side was a bit cooler than the middle there. It's at 151. But it should equalize out. So now we're going to let this set for about an hour. Yep, this recipe calls for a 60-minute mash. So what a perfect time to have a homebrew and probably clean some of the house up. So we'll see you in an hour. There we go. Just wanted to show you guys it is actually sitting at 154. Like I said, I found that there are pockets of warm and cold within there, so you mix it up to distribute the temperature as best you can, but sometimes it just takes closing it up and then give it a minute or two and the temperature equalizes out. So now it's set exactly where I want it. I'm excited. This calls for some brewski. Some homebrewed delish. Alright, we'll see you in an hour. We're 30 minutes into the mash. We've lost 1 degree. Gotta love the Coleman cooler. So we'll see you guys in about 30 minutes. Okay, it's been an hour, and check that out. We're still at 153. So this thing lost 1 degree the entire hour. Love it. Gotta love it. So now we're going to open this up. We're going to pull out the thermometer here, and we're going to begin a procedure called a Vorlauf. And basically that just means that we're going to start draining off wort very slowly in an effort to clear out the braid that was going down the center of this, that stainless steel braid, and basically get the wort running as clear as we can. Then what we'll do is we'll start putting it into the boil kettle, and once it reaches a certain point, then we will get it on the propane burner and we will get that sucker boiling away. So let me just rearrange things here a bit and we'll begin that Vorlauf. One thing we need to do before we actually do the Vorlauf is to do a test on the wort to make sure that the starches have been converted into sugars. There's two ways to do this. One is a taste test. You can just taste it to see if it's sweet, but that's not really a very good way to do it. Different people taste sweetness differently. So for example, if I did a taste test on it, even if it was just mildly sweet, it'd probably end up being about 0.5% alcohol or something. But one pretty much surefire way to do this is it's called an iodine test. And what you do, you collect a small amount of wort, just a bit, it doesn't have to be a lot. And what we'll do is we'll put a drop of iodine in here. Now if the iodine turns black, you know that your starches have not been converted. If the iodine stays a nice brown color, that means that your sugars have been converted. And then after that, I usually do a quick little taste test because I'm curious. So let me grab some iodine real quick. Okay, we've got our iodine here, so you just put in a drop or two. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that, but you see how it's maintaining a nice brown color? That means that it is good. It's not turning black at all, actually. We'll do another little tester on the side. In the Irish Stout here, it's kind of hard to tell because it's such a dark brew anyway. But just a little drop. Come on. I don't want to put a whole lot in there. Okay. So now watch. See how it spreads and it does not turn black or blue? That's exactly what you want. So this is good to go. Let's get this sucker cleaned up and get it put in the kettle. Okay, so to do a Vorlauf, you just grab a sanitized container here, and you just very, very slowly get that pouring out. You see, it's going to come out very, very cloudy. All sorts of grain particles are going to be stuck in there, and it takes a couple of these to a couple runnings to really get it cleared up and running pretty much clear at this point. So we'll just let that collect, and then once you've collected this, you just pour it back in very slowly on top of the rest of the mash in there, so you don't waste anything. Because after all, just because this is cloudy doesn't mean by the time it goes through all those grains again, it's going to be cloudy again. In fact, it's going to be quite clear. And naturally, being an Irish Stout, it's so dark, I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to have a difficult time telling when this one is clear or not. It smells really, really good though. Okay, we'll close that off. Add it back to the top. Nice and slow. And we repeat the process. We keep doing this until it's clear. Okay, this is running pretty clear. I think this is going to be the last one I had to do. I did about 4 of these. This will be the 4th one, yep. And I mean, it's looking pretty darn clear. So what we'll do, as soon as this amount here is done running off, what we'll do, we'll close up that valve, put on a piece of tubing, because you don't want to agitate your wort quite yet. Oxygen now is not a good thing. Won't kill it, but it's not the best. Okay, so kill that, set this aside. And what we'll do, we'll just take our tubing, get it attached, and in the brew kettle here. Okay, and away we go. You don't want it to drain too fast, so I leave it literally open just far enough really to let it continue leaving out as it was when I was doing the Vorlauf. But see, there's no air bubbles in there. That's perfect. It's filling up in there nicely. So now we need to get to sparging. Okay, if you're not familiar with sparging, basically when you drain out your wort from your bed of grains here, you have to maintain water on the top to keep the pressure pushing the sugary wort down and out through the spigot, through the filter. So as you can see right now, it's lowered, what, about 1.5 inches or so? So what you do, you take a sanitized colander, or some people put a plate down there, in a floating plate, plastic plate or something, and pour their sparge water right on top of it. But this works great for me. You just want to gently take some very hot water, this is sitting at about 170, and just sprinkle it across the top here. And like I said, when you open up your spigot to drain off your wort, you don't want to go too fast. If you go too fast, you can collapse your grain bed and then you'll get a stuck sparge, which means pretty much you have to agitate it all up and redo the Vorlauf to get your to get the flow back. So you pretty much just add hot water as it drains out. Typically they say to keep about 1 inch to 2 inches of water on the top of your grain bed. But right now, to be honest, this brew is so dark I can't see it. But I can see that as the water is just hitting from the bottom of the colander, it's agitating, so I do know that the water is just a little bit low. So we'll just keep adding here. And like I said, you want your water to be about 170 degrees, no more, I guess I should say, no more than 170 degrees. Anything more than pretty much 170 and on up, you're going to release tannins from the grain husks. Basically, tannins are that bitter, it's an unpleasant bitterness that you don't want it. Trust me on that one, you don't want it. But yeah, you just keep this up. It usually takes, for a batch like this, it's probably going to take me about 30 to 40 minutes to sparge it all. For my pumpkin beer, that one took almost 2 hours to sparge. So it depends on your ingredients, what you've got in here. If you're mashing with fruits or with anything that's going to add gumminess or a weird texture to your liquid. You know, if it's something that's going to be stickier than just the sugar, you're looking at a longer sparge time. It takes time, but it's well worth it, because if you do this right, you're going to get really good efficiency out of your grains. You're going to have a nice full flavored brew with a good alcohol content. If you rush it, you may create channels within your grain where pretty much you're pouring on so much water that the grains make little rivers that the water can just shoot straight down to the bottom. And in a case like that, you're losing your sugar, so you're losing your alcohol content. And you're also losing flavor, because instead of collecting the wort, really you're just getting water that has touched wort. It's not worth it. So take your time with this. For sparge, it's a very easy process. The unfortunate bit is that it takes 2 hands to do it this way. So you can't have your home brew. But you can buy sparge arms. You can get all kinds of products to help you with this. They've got whole automated systems. You name it. This is the cheap way to do it. Alright, it works great and doesn't bother me any, so we'll just keep doing this. You can see the grain bed. You can actually start to see it now. The darkness is starting to go away a bit, so it's good. We're collecting it out. And we'll just keep it up here. We'll see you in just a bit. Okay, so as you can see, we've collected about just over half of my brew kettle's capacity's worth of wort, which is just over 4 gallons. So what I'm going to do now, I'm actually going to shut this off. Going off screen there. But we're shutting that off, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this, get it on the propane burner so that way it can get heating up quickly. What I'll continue to do is continue to pull more and more wort off, but put it in this brew kettle here. It's my old brew kettle, the small one. And what we'll do is when it fills up, we'll just take it out, we'll dump it into this one right on top of the, on the propane burner. So that way that'll lessen the amount of time it takes me to get this thing up to a boil. Usually when I boil this, I have it filled right up to about here, if not just a bit higher. So it takes a little while, and if I can shave off time off the getting this thing up to a boil, that's the best. So we're going to go ahead, get this all moved around, and we'll get this on the propane burner and continue the sparge into the smaller kettle. Okay, we're nearing the hot break. You can see that the brew here is starting to really get bubbling. So I always have my handy dandy sprayer bottle handy, so that way I can spray it once the foam takes off. I have noticed that doing all grain batches in comparison to extract, the all grain has a lot more foam, and that has to do with proteins and stuff like that. But anytime now we're going to be seeing that hot break, and we'll be adding the gypsum, and we will be adding our 1 ounce of Nugget bittering hops. Okay, we are just past the hot break, so now it is time to add our gypsum. And 1 ounce of Nugget hops here. I spilled a couple here on my lid, so we'll just get those added. Perfect. Now I'll stand guard with my sprayer just in case it decides to flare up on me. But like I said, it's so cold out here, I don't know if we're going to get much more of a boil than that. I've tried to windshield everything as best I can. We'll just keep our eye on it, and we'll see you guys in about... Okay, it has been 45 minutes, so it is time now to add our Vorlauf tablet. I know that it doesn't look like it's boiling, but it is actually boiling. It's so cold out here that I've actually had a heck of a time keeping the temperature right. But as you can see, I've got my thermometer in there, and it's reading a steady 212 to 214, 215. So given that it's, it's 18 degrees I think right now, Fahrenheit, it's not doing too bad. So at this point I would also usually add the wort chiller, but I'm actually going to be eco-friendly today and use Mother Nature to cool the wort down. So so we've got 15 more minutes until we turn off the propane burner, and this baby will be done. So we will see you in 15. Okay, so after I cut that last scene, if you will, my propane burner went out on me. So rather than running out and trying to get propane at this hour, I was going to go ahead, split them up like this, and they are both now boiling away. So this is an aluminum pot, so it could only really boil a little bit. My stainless steel one here, though, is filled within that much of the top, and it's rocking and rolling. So we're going to let these boil for a little bit longer, and then what we'll do, we will add our Aroma hops, and then we'll get these cooling down. So improvisation, you gotta love it. Okay, so these have been bubbling away now for a little while longer, and so now it's time to add our Willamette, or Willamette, however you want to say it. The Aroma hops. So I'm gonna put most of them in here because this is where most of the brew wound up. I always have my spritzer ready just in case they decide to go nuts. No? Good. And now we'll put the rest of them in this one. Delightful. So now we've got about 2 minutes left, and then we will be pulling these off the burners and getting them cooling down. So we'll see you in just a minute. And there sit on my porch 2 forlorn pots and an empty as hell gas tank. But it's gonna be good. So those 2 batches, or those 2 pots out there, are now chilling out, and given that it's about 18 degrees outside, it's not gonna take too long. I'm going to be stirring those with a sanitized spoon every couple minutes just to make sure they're chilling down nicely. And while all that's going on, it'll be time to get to sanitizing our fermentation equipment. Okay, so now that the wort's done cooling, it's time to get it into the fermenter here. So away we go. A couple pumps of the siphon. And I always run mine through the mesh strainer here. It helps catch all those hot particles as well as aerates the wort. Looking good. Okay, so before we pitch the yeast here, we need to take a hydrometer reading to see where our alcohol content's going to be. So just put the thief in, draw up our sample. Look at that, it's nice and dark. Everything has been soaking in sanitizer, so okay, let's see here. Wow, this one's gonna be good. This one is sitting at 1.062. Not sure if you can see that. I'm trying to. Oh, no. There we go. 1.06. The bubbles are right in front of it. But it's sitting right at about the 6.2 point. So according to our little thing here, we're looking at just under 6% alcohol. Not too shabby. I always put the sample back. They say you're not supposed to, but everything's been sanitized, so I'm not too worried about it. And now we're going to take our Safale S-04. There we go. Cut her open. And the manufacturer's instructions say right here, pitching, sprinkle into wort. So I'm not going to bother with rehydrating anything. So here we go. Pretty evenly sprinkled across the top, if I do say so myself. Now it's just a matter of getting our lid on here. Let's see, I like to keep it on that side. Grab our... Oh, where is it? Here it is. Sanitized lock. Pop that sucker in there. Some sanitizer here. Oh. Perfect. And just pop the lid on. Okay, so there we go. I've got it now in the fermentation box, and it's actually going to be interesting, this batch, because right now in this room right now it's about 60 degrees. So I may not have to worry about keeping my ice block in here with the fan on and all that to keep it cool enough. I'm going to keep a very close eye on the temperature. I would like this one to ferment at about, well, my usual 68 degrees has always worked well. It looks to be a pretty safe number across the board when it comes to yeast. And to be honest, I've never used Safale before, and so I'm really anxious to see how it turns out. With that, that about does it, actually. I got lost in my thoughts there. I'm thinking that maybe the next beer I'll have to do will be a lager, given that it's so cold. Well, cheers everyone. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this informative. Please do feel free to rate, thumbs up, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy it. Tell your friends. And also, I am on Twitter. It's twitter.com/terpskid. If you happen to be on Twitter yourself, feel free to follow me. I do post updates to there that are not on Facebook as well. So they bounce back and forth, but each does its own thing. So cheers everyone. Hope you have a good one. Hope you had fun. And we'll see you in a couple weeks when it's come time to taste this one. And I'm excited, so we'll see you then.